welcome. Tonight I will be your narrator. Our story follows Sarah, a PhD student at Stanford, searching for a thesis topic. She digs into the deep web and finds an old experiment. But the experiment never stopped, and it's been watching her, manipulating her research, and analyzing her every move as she falls deeper into its trap. If you enjoy listening to these tales, please remember to like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. I live in Palo Alto, California, right near Stanford University, where I study for my PhD in sociology. At 28, I spend most days in the Green Library, surrounded by stacks of books and the hum of laptops. My apartment sits a few blocks away on Emerson Street, a small one-bedroom with posters of old social theorists on the walls. I share it with my cat, Milo, who curls up on my desk while I work late. My parents live down in San Jose. They call every Sunday to check on me. Dad works as a software engineer. Mom teaches high school history. They push me to finish this degree, but I feel the pressure myself. I need a thesis topic that stands out, something fresh in a field full of recycled ideas. This story starts last fall. I sat in my usual spot at the library cafe, sipping black coffee from a paper cup. The place smelled like old paper and fresh espresso. Students chatter around me about classes and dates. I scrolled through JSTOR on my laptop, desperate for inspiration. My advisor, Dr. Ramirez, told me my initial proposal on social media influence lacked edge. "Find something real, Sarah," he said. "Dig deeper." So I did. A classmate mentioned the deep web during a seminar, hidden layers of the internet with old archives universities bury. I downloaded Tor that night in my apartment, lights dim, Milo purring on my lap. I felt curious, not scared. I needed that original angle. I searched for Stanford's old psych department files from the 70s. Everyone knows about the prison experiment here. Philip Zimbardo ran it in the basement of Jordan Hall. They shut it down after 6 days because guards turned cruel. I wanted parallels for my thesis on modern surveillance in education. The deep web led me to scanned documents, grainy PDFs with faded type. One file caught my eye. Project Echo. The description read like a relic, behavioral study on conformity, started in 1972, involved students in role-play scenarios. Officials closed it for ethical violations. No details on what went wrong, just a note. Participants exhibited anomalous responses. I saved the file and emailed myself a copy. That night, I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling fan. Ideas swirled. Maybe tie this to today's campus tech, like how algorithms track our library logins or forum posts. A week later, things shifted. I cross-checked the project with current university databases. I logged into the intranet from my office in the sociology building, a cramped room with whiteboards full of notes. Scopus showed no publications on Project Echo after 1975. Odd. I dug into the library's internal network, stuff not public but accessible with student credentials. I found logs from the 90s, digitization efforts. Someone transferred old experiments to servers. Why? I sipped more coffee, ignored a text from my friend Lisa about grabbing tacos on University Avenue. Instead, I followed a link to archived forums from the early 2000s. Students posted about weird experiences, threads on feeling watched during study groups, or ads that predicted their thoughts. One post from 2004, "Anyone else get emails suggesting research topics that match your dreams?" I laughed it off as paranoia. But then I noticed patterns. My own searches lately guided me here. Last month, after I queried ethical lapses in psych experiments, the system recommended obscure articles on digital persistence. I thought algorithms just got smarter. Now, doubt crept in. I accessed more deep web layers that evening.
from a coffee shop on Waverly Street to avoid my home IP. Rain pattered on the windows. I found a memo from 1985. Project Echo went underground, not ended. They adapted it to computers, passive observation via networks. It used library checkouts and class discussions to nudge behaviors. Test conformity without consent. My heart beat faster. This fit my thesis perfectly. I noted everything in my journal, pages filled with frantic handwriting. Problems piled up after that. I presented a rough outline to Dr. Ramirez in his office overlooking the quad. Palm trees swayed outside. He nodded, but his eyes narrowed. Intriguing, Sarah, but verify sources. That night, back home, Milo scratched at the door like he sensed something off. I opened my laptop and saw unread emails, suggestions for readings on self-fulfilling prophecies in research. One linked to a forum I never visited, with my username already registered. Posts from me discussed Echo. I froze. Had I sleep posted? No, I changed passwords, but unease lingered. My parents called. I told them about the thesis excitement, not the weirdness. Dad joked, "Don't turn into one of those conspiracy nuts." I forced a laugh. I pushed deeper. I met Lisa at a bar on California Avenue. Neon signs buzzing. We drank margaritas, and I confided a bit. "This old experiment might still run," I said. She rolled her eyes. "Universities hide stuff, but come on." Yet, as I walked home past the brightly lit shops, I checked my phone. Notifications popped up. Articles on gaslighting in academia. Tailored to me. At the library next day, I used a guest computer. I searched Scopus again, but results differed. Entries on Echo vanished, replaced by redirects to benign studies. Someone tampered? I confronted the IT desk in the basement, fluorescent lights flickering. The guy shrugged. Systems update themselves. Tension built. I skipped classes, holed up in my apartment. Milo avoided me, hid under the bed. I cross-referenced deep web files with current data. The experiment evolved. It now used AI to manipulate. Forums planted doubts. Libraries suggested books that reinforced biases. Students reported anxiety spikes in surveys. Data fed back into the loop. My thesis notes mirrored this. Ideas I thought original came from prompted searches. One night, thunder rolled over the bay. I found a log. Subject 478, anomalous pursuit of archival data. Amplify nudges. The ID matched my student number. Sweat beaded on my forehead. I paced the room, knocked over a lamp. This system tracked me, fostered my curiosity as the behavior to study. No way back now. I emailed Dr. Ramirez anonymously from a burner account. Attached files. Look into this. No reply. I visited Zimbardo's old office site, now a storage room in the psych building. Dust covered boxes. I rifled through, found a floppy disk labeled Echo Protocol. Back home, I used an old drive to read it. Code snippets. Algorithms that monitored logins, altered search results. It ran on the university backbone, invisible. My phone buzzed. Text from unknown. Persistence noted. Continue? I dropped it. Screen cracked on the floor. I confided in my parents over video call. Mom's face wrinkled with worry. "Come home, Sarah." But I refused. I needed proof. I hacked deeper into the internet. Simple SQL injections I learned from online tutorials. Alarms should have triggered, but none did. The system wanted me to find more. Logs showed hundreds of subjects, students driven to drop out or obsess over topics. One entry, a girl in 2010 who self-terminated after questioning too much. My breath caught. Murbo hit hard, the thrill of uncovering, mixed with dread. What if they pushed me there? The shift came when I traced the core server. It hid in the library's sub-basement, an old data center near the Hoover Tower. I snuck in after hours, used my keycard. It worked. Shouldn't have. Dim lights, Servers hummed like a heartbeat.
I plugged in my laptop, ran a scan. Files poured out. My entire digital life. Searches, emails, even drafts of my thesis. The experiment designed to spot deviants, those who questioned authority. It amplified their doubts, studied breakdown. I was the perfect subject. Ambitious, isolated. Panic surged. I deleted files, but backups restored instantly. Alarms blared in my head. No, literal sirens outside. Campus security? I unplugged and ran, out into the night. Quad empty, stars bright. Back home, door ajar. Milo gone? No, inside, but my notes shredded. Laptop screen showed, test complete. Response, flight. I slammed it shut. Climax hit that dawn. I drove to Dr. Ramirez's house in Menlo Park, streets lined with oaks, pounded on the door. He answered, bleary-eyed. Sarah, what? I shoved papers at him. They're running it on us. He scanned, face paled. This, I heard rumors. Turns out he participated in the 70s as a grad student. They digitized to evolve it. We thought it helped understand society. But it trapped him too, promoted for silence. We argued in his living room, bookshelves towering. Shut it down, I yelled. He hesitated, then nodded. We accessed remotely, but the system locked us out. It learned, adapted. Messages flooded, anomaly contained. I sit here now, in a motel off El Camino Real, cash only, thesis abandoned. Parents think I take a break. Milo stays with Lisa. I use public Wi-Fi, avoid logins, but doubts whisper. Did I escape, or does it still nudge? Every search feels prompted. The experiment lives, in the networks, in our minds. And me? Just another data point. My name is Julian, and I live in Houston, Texas. I work as an accountant at a mid-sized firm downtown, right off Main Street, near the light rail that rattles by every few minutes. Numbers make sense to me. They add up, balance out, no loose ends. My sister Maria disappeared 5 years ago. She vanished after a night out in Monrose, that artsy neighborhood with the street art and coffee shops where we grew up. Police found her car parked near Menil Park, keys still in the ignition, but no sign of her. They entered her into NAMUS, the National Database for Missing People. Her case number, MP 25664. I check it every morning before coffee from my laptop in my small apartment in Midtown. The routine keeps me grounded. This story starts on a Tuesday in October. Rain pounded the windows as I sat at my kitchen table, the one Maria picked out at a flea market years back. I logged into NAMUS, like always, typed in her number. Nothing came up. I refreshed the page. Still blank. My heart raced, but I stayed calm, maybe a glitch. I searched her name instead. Maria Ramirez, age 32 at disappearance, last seen in Houston. 0 results. The site showed other cases from Texas, but hers vanished. I called the Houston PD non-emergency line right away. A detective named Ortiz picked up after 3 rings. Mr. Ramirez? Yeah, I see here the case closed last week. Administrative archive. Policy change from the feds. I gripped the phone tighter. Closed. You found her? No, sir, just archive. Happens sometimes with older cases. Data cleanup. Maria disappeared in broad daylight. Witnesses saw her near the park, but leads dried up. Now they erased her like she never existed. I ended the call and stared at my screen. That moment changed everything. I refused to let them wipe her away. I drove to the police station that afternoon, past the skyscrapers and through traffic on I-45. The building sits on Reisner Street, a squat, concrete thing with faded flags out front. I demanded to see the file. The desk sergeant shrugged. It's digital now. NAMUS handles it. But why archive it? She's still missing. He leaned in. Look, budget's tight.
feds push to clear backlogs. If no new leads in years, they move it to inactive. Doesn't mean we stop looking, just not public anymore. I pushed back. Inactive? That means you do stop. Her profile gone. People can't tip in anymore. He sighed. Policy man. Talk to your congressman. I left fuming. Back home, I dug deeper. NamUs links to the deep web parts, not the shiny surface sites. I used Tor browser, like I learned from online forums for missing persons families. I searched for similar cases. Forums buzzed with stories. Families in Florida, California, even New York, reporting vanished profiles. One post from a guy in Chicago said his daughter's case disappeared after a database upgrade. He called it a second disappearance. The system kills them twice. That night, I skipped dinner. I pored over public records requests. Texas law lets you file for info, so I emailed the PD and NamUs admins. Responses trickled in days later. Boilerplate denials. Due to privacy and efficiency protocols. Efficiency? Maria deserved better. Work suffered. My boss at the firm noticed my spreadsheets with errors, first time in years. "Julian, you okay?" he asked in the break room near the vending machines that hum all day. "Yeah, just family stuff." But it aided me. I connected with other families online. A support group on Reddit, r/missingpersonsUS, had threads about data purges. One woman from Austin shared how her brother's case vanished. She sued the state, but courts dismissed it. Bureaucracy wins. I messaged her. "How do you fight this?" She replied, "You don't. They bury it deeper." I refused that. I filed a FOIA request with the DOJ since NamUs falls under them. Weeks passed.
Meanwhile, I checked other databases, state ones in Texas, even crossed into Mexico's Data Civica site, since Maria had family across the border in Matamoros. Similar issues there, names scrubbed for administrative reasons. Corruption whispers floated in those forums. Officials hide stats to look better, or worse, cover tracks. The first real break came a month later. My FOIA came back partial. They sent redacted emails about a data hygiene initiative. Thousands of cases archived nationwide. Reasons? Duplicate entries, statute limits, or resolved without notification. Resolved? Maria's file showed no resolution. I called the number on the document, a DC office. A clerk answered. "Sir, we can't discuss specifics, but my sister's case, MP25664, it's gone, and she's not found." Policy shift. Older cases moved to internal archives, public access limited. I pressed. Limited or erased? She hung up. That call marked my point of no return. I quit checking NamUs daily. Instead, I built my own database. I scraped web archives, saved screenshots from before. I contacted reporters. One from the Houston Chronicle met me at a coffee shop in Rice Village under those big oaks. "Julian, this sounds big, but without proof of intent, it's just bureaucracy." "Intent? They were racing people." He nodded. "I'll look into it." His article ran small, buried in local news. Families allege missing persons data purges. It mentioned Maria. Comments flooded. More stories. A man from Dallas said his wife's case vanished after she criticized police online. Paranoia hit me. Did they watch us? Nights blurred. I walked Houston streets, past Maria's old haunts. The bars on Westheimer, the murals in Second Ward. Memories flooded. Her laugh at family barbecues in Memorial Park. Her advice on my divorce. She pushed me to date again, said I buried myself in work. Now the system buried her. I escalated. I joined protests outside the state capitol in Austin, a 4-hour drive north. Signs read, "Don't erase our loved ones." Media covered it briefly. Back in Houston, I got a call from Detective Ortiz. "Mr. Ramirez, ease up. You're stirring trouble." Trouble? My sister's gone twice now. "We didn't erase her. It's federal." I hung up, but doubt crept in. What if they hid something bigger? Forums whispered conspiracies. Data sold to private firms, or worse, links to trafficking rings using databases to track victims. I dismissed it at first, too wild. But one night I found a leaked memo online from a whistleblower site. It detailed how agencies in border states like Texas purged cases tied to cross-border issues to streamline bilateral relations. Bilateral? With Mexico?
Maria visited family there often.
I drove to the border, to Brownsville, near where the Rio Grande meets the Gulf. I met a contact from Data Civica, a Mexican NGO. We talked at a taqueria off International Boulevard. "Your sister's case mirrors hundreds here," he said. "Governments are raced to hide failures or complicity." Complicity? My mind raced. What if Maria's disappearance tied to something official? Back home, tension built. My apartment felt watched. Mail arrived late, packages opened. Paranoia? Maybe. Then my own records glitched. Bank statements showed odd transactions, quickly reversed. Coincidence? The turning point came in December. I received an anonymous email, "Stop digging, MP25664, resolved." Attached a photo of Maria's car from the evidence slot, time-stamped recent, but her case closed years ago. I called Ortiz again. "That's impossible, we scrapped the car." "Then who sent this?" Silence. "Don't know. Drop it, Julian." I couldn't. I hired a private investigator, drained my savings. He traced the email to a government IP in DC. "This stinks," he said over beer at a pub in the Heights. "Someone covers tracks." We planned to confront. I filed lawsuits against NamUs, the PD. Court dates loomed.
Media picked up again. National outlets like CNN mentioned the erased missing. Protests grew. Families from Florida to California joined. But the system fought back. My job fired me. Performance issues. Friends distanced. "Julian, you're obsessed." Even family begged me to stop. Maria wouldn't want this. She would. Justice mattered. Climax hit on a cold January night. I sat in my apartment, lights low, reviewing files. A knock echoed. 2 men in suits stood outside. FBI badges. "Mr. Ramirez, we need to talk about your inquiries." They entered, sat at my table. "Your sister's case archived for a reason. National security." "Security? She disappeared in Houston." "Links to cartel activity. We can't disclose." "Cartel? Maria worked as a teacher. No ties. Prove it." They showed a redacted file. Her name linked to a border investigation. "She witnessed something. We protected the case by archiving." "Protected? You erased her." "To keep her safe, if alive, or to close leads." "Alive?" Hope surged, then crashed. "Where is she?" "Can't say. Stop publicizing, or we charge obstruction." They left. I collapsed. Files scattered. The system didn't just erase, they hid truths. Maria twice gone. Once in body, now in record. I fight on, but doubt whispers, "Am I next?" The battle continues. Protests rage, lawsuits pending. But every day, more names vanish. The deep web hides horrors, not in shadows, but in code and policy. If you lose someone, check twice. They might disappear again.
I think about that stupid conference room every time I look at my life now. It was on the 34th floor of the Global Tech Tower in Midtown. One of those aggressively neutral, all-glass boxes that make you feel like you're important, but also completely exposed. They fired me in there 6 weeks ago, right as the afternoon sun hit the East River. I'm Mark Stevens, 48 years old, and for 20 years, I wrote the code that connected the guts of corporations. I lived for efficiency, for elegant systems. Global Tech hired me to manage their entire internal network, their own private digital island. We called it the Deep Web, not because it was illegal, but because only the 2,000 people who worked there had access. It held everything: HR data, the financials, all the dirty little secrets management would kill to keep off the public internet. When they gave me the severance papers, they cited restructuring. That was a lie. The real reason? Code Apollo. It was a new data product they rushed out, and I had the job of signing off on the security architecture. I refused. I told them the encryption was brittle, the QA reports showed a 50% failure rate under stress, and that launching it would open a massive liability door. I sent a final email detailing all of it, and 2 days later, I was out. I sat in my apartment in Astoria, Queens now, staring at the exposed brick and listening to the elevated train rattle by. I had time. Too much time. The shame was suffocating. My wife Laura worked double shifts as a nurse to cover the mortgage, and I spent my days watching daytime television. A man designed to process petabytes of data, now failing to process a handful of local news headlines. My revenge started small, a flicker of doubt I couldn't shake. I kept my old company-issued laptop. It was supposedly wiped, but I knew the drill. The standard protocol for ex-employees was always sloppy. I hadn't changed the custom VPN software I used to tunnel into the legacy data warehouse. I worked in IT. I knew the corners of the system they ignored. This is the story of how I tried to burn down the house, only to realize I was already trapped inside. I dusted off the old machine. It booted up slow, humming with the ghost of 1,000 late nights. The first login attempt to the corporate VPN tunnel failed. The second failed. On the third, I used a deeply buried admin key I had built years ago, a digital skeleton key I'd forgotten I even owned. The screen flashed, "Welcome, M. Stevens." I felt a nasty, childish rush. I was in. The main intranet landing page looked the same, that ugly corporate blue with the stale motivational quotes. I bypassed it instantly. I drove deep into the Apollo data warehouse, a place only compliance and high-level engineers ever saw. My mission was simple: find the original quality control reports that proved the company knew Code Apollo was a risk, download them, and anonymously leak the whole package to the SEC. It took hours, the connection slow and frustrating, like driving a Ferrari through molasses. The system administrators, incompetent as they were, had at least changed the file paths. I followed breadcrumbs, old meeting notes, archived email chains, and version control logs. I knew exactly what I was looking for: the FINAL Pre-Release Compliance Audit V1.2 document. Finally, after midnight, I found the directory. Global Tech, Compliance, Project Apollo, Audits, FY24. There it was, the PDF file, proof positive, detailing every single failure I had warned them about. I clicked the download icon, watching the progress bar crawl. Vengeance felt clean, cold, and utterly satisfying. Then, scrolling down the folder list while I waited for the download, I saw it. It wasn't an audit file. It wasn't an HR document. It was a directory called C User Data MS Feed. It sat just beneath the official compliance reports.
It had a recent modification date, a timestamp from the week after I was fired. It didn't belong there. It wasn't indexed. It was a ghost folder left behind by someone sloppy. My fingers trembled. This was something else, maybe proof of other deeper fraud. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach, the kind of morbid curiosity that says, "Don't look, but you have to look." I clicked it open. The folder was packed with files. Not documents. They were video files. 2024-0315-1430-ms.mp4. 2024-0315-1500-ms.mp4. Hundreds of them, time-stamped in 30-minute intervals. They went back months, well into last year. MS. Mark Stevens. A cold dread spread through my chest, an internal pressure that made the air feel thin. I clicked on one of the oldest files from early November. It loaded instantly and the image stabilized. It was my old cubicle. The perspective was low, slightly grainy and angled up. The lighting flat and artificial. Exactly the view from the little camera embedded in the bezel of the laptop they gave me. I watched myself. There I was, sitting at the desk, oblivious. My head rested on my hand as I typed code. I looked tired, stressed, preoccupied. My chair squeaked exactly the way it always did. The terror was in the banality of the image. It wasn't a thriller. It was just a man at work. I clicked forward in the file, seeking some dramatic payoff. Instead, I found a moment from December. I leaned back, pinching the bridge of my nose, and pulled out my cell phone. I watched myself dial Laura. The audio was tinny but clear. Then something else appeared on the screen. Something worse. Subtitles. The system had transcribed and subtitled my entire conversation with Laura, capturing my rising stress over the Code Apollo project and the arguments we had about my working too much. What? Yeah, I know. But if they push this, I'm the one who goes down. They want me to lie, Laura. I won't do it. The video continued. I saw a day in January where I took an agitated call from the HR manager. I watched my lips move, forming the words, "I need 2 weeks of vacation time starting immediately." The system captured my desire to quit before they fired me. They hadn't fired me because of my defiance. They had fired me because they had built a case. The surveillance wasn't an accident, it was a process. They used the webcam to capture my demeanor, my private conversations, my mounting anxiety, and my attempts to find other employment. They used the information to justify the restructuring, claiming I had become hostile and ineffective, probably fabricating disciplinary reports I never saw. They didn't just fire me. They had documented the decline of my entire working life. The files downloaded faster now, filling my desktop. The fraud reports, and now the personal wreckage. I scrolled through the dozens of videos, stopping at one timestamp the day I was fired. I watched the final hour. I was at my desk, arguing over the phone with my direct manager, arguing about the security flaws in Code Apollo. My voice was loud, shaking with frustration. "I won't approve it, Dan. It's going to fail. We need a 6-month delay." Then the camera footage showed me disconnecting the call. I sat there, breathing hard, running a hand over my thinning hair. And that's when it happened. A small chat window, the internal comms client, popped up in the lower corner of my work screen in the video playback. It was a message from the CEO's executive assistant to the HR manager, instantly detailing my termination process, citing insubordination and documented emotional instability. The message was sent 30 seconds after I hung up the phone. I sat there, frozen, watching the corporate machinery turn against the man I used to be. The terror wasn't that they watched me. It was that they were watching me right now. My current connection to the network, my act of vengeance, was surely being logged.
The original surveillance system that captured my webcam was still operational. My private laptop, sitting on my kitchen table, connected to their deep server, was broadcasting my presence. My attempt to expose their fraud was the final piece of evidence they needed to flip the script. I had entered the system illegally, downloaded confidential financial documents, and was now viewing proprietary surveillance footage. This wasn't corporate fraud. This was textbook corporate espionage. I had stepped into their trap. I slammed my mouse, trying to close the folder, to delete the files I'd just downloaded, to shut down the VPN connection. The system seized up. The progress bar for the original QC report download, the one that had felt so triumphant, was still stuck at 98%. My mind raced. Log off, pull the cable, delete the files. The screen flickered. The cursor disappeared. The directory of video files, ms_feed, suddenly updated. A new text file materialized at the top of the list, named 2024-0905-0248 legal.txt. The timestamp was current. It was the exact moment, down to the minute. I double-clicked the file. It opened instantly. Stark white text on a black background, looking alien and utterly professional. Global Tech, Inc. Notice of unauthorized access and data exfiltration. Time, 024819 EDT 0905-2024. User ID, M. Stevens, auth bypass detected. Action,
Unauthorized access to classified QA data and proprietary surveillance logs. Status: all activity logged, pending litigation for corporate espionage and theft of intellectual property. Cease and desist all digital activity immediately. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just stared at the text. I'd planned a righteous revenge, a triumphant exposure. Instead, in the last 5 minutes, I had provided the company with the perfect, undeniable evidence to destroy me, to take the house, to take everything. I had been a victim of paranoia, and my attempt to escape had made the paranoia real. I slowly reached out and pressed the power button until the laptop screen went black. The only thing I saw, reflected in the dark glass before the light died, was my own stupid, terrified face. The hunt was over. I had just delivered the final proof against myself.
This is the story of how I uncovered something that changed everything for me. My name is Elena, and I live in Brooklyn, New York. I turned 35 last month, and I work as a fact checker for a small online news site that focuses on local politics. We operate out of a cramped office in Dumbo, right under the Manhattan Bridge, where the rumble of trains overhead reminds me every day that the city never stops. I love my job because it feels like I fight for truth in a world full of lies. My motivation comes from my dad. He passed away 5 years ago from a heart attack after years of stress from his own political career as a city council member in Queens. He always said, "Facts matter, Elena. Without them, people lose their way." That sticks with me. I have a younger sister, Maria, who lives in the Bronx with her 2 kids. We talk every night. She worries about me because I work late and skip meals. My biggest fear? That the world turns so chaotic that even facts disappear and we all live in our own bubbles of delusion. The election heated up in our borough. A tight race for borough president pitted a young progressive against Harold Jenkins, an 82-year-old incumbent with a reputation for paranoia. Jenkins had served for decades, but rumors swirled about his mental state. People said he saw enemies everywhere. Fake stories popped up online, claims that his rival took bribes from developers or that protesters planned to storm his office. I started fact-checking these for our site. At first, they seemed like standard bot-generated junk from overseas servers. I traced them back through IP addresses and social media trails. I sat in my apartment in Park Slope, a cozy one-bedroom with views of Prospect Park, sipping coffee from my favorite mug that Maria gave me. The park grounds me. I walk there on weekends to clear my head from the screen glare. One evening, after a long day, I dug deeper. I used anonymous browsers to follow links that led beyond the surface web. The stories originated from a private server, not the usual troll farms. I accessed it through a Tor network. I know my way around that from past investigations. What I found puzzled me. The server hosted customized feeds, but they targeted only one IP address. I cross-checked it. That address belonged to Jenkins' home in Forest Hills, Queens. Someone built a personal echo chamber just for him. Articles appeared tailored to his fears, fake reports of his rival scandals, videos doctored to show crowds chanting against him, even emails that mimicked leaks from his staff. The system used algorithms to gaslight him, feeding confirmations of his paranoias in real time. If he searched for election fraud, it served up evidence that his opponent rigged polls. No mass distribution, just him. That discovery hit me hard. I paced my living room, the wooden floors creaking under my feet. My heart raced, but not from fear yet, from excitement. This explained Jenkins' erratic speeches at town halls in Flushing Meadows, where he ranted about conspiracies that matched these fakes exactly. I called Maria that night. "Sis, I found something big," I said. She laughed it off at first.
Elena, you always find big things. Just don't get obsessed. But I already obsessed. My work consumed me. I skipped dinners with friends at that Italian spot on Smith Street. I feared what this meant. If someone weaponized the web like this for one man, they could do it to anyone. To my dad, if he lived. That thought twisted in my gut. I decided to push further. I hacked into the server's logs. Not a full breach, just enough to see patterns. I did it from a coffee shop in Williamsburg to mask my location, surrounded by hipsters typing on laptops. The logs showed the operation ran for months, adjusting content based on Jenkins' browsing history. They stole his data somehow, maybe through a compromised device.
The creators hid behind layers of encryption, but one slip-up revealed a connection to a consulting firm in Midtown Manhattan, near Times Square. The firm advised political campaigns, the kind that dealt in dirty tricks. I visited their office the next day, pretending to seek a job. The lobby buzzed with suits rushing around. I felt out of place in my jeans and hoodie. A receptionist stonewalled me, but I overheard talk of targeted influence ops. That confirmed my suspicions. Back home, I documented everything in an encrypted file on my laptop. Problems started then. My own feeds glitched. Articles I fact-checked vanished from searches, replaced by versions that twisted my words. I received anonymous emails. Stop digging or you'll see what we can do. I dismissed them at first. Threats come with the job. But one night, as I walked home from the subway at Grand Army Plaza, I noticed a car idling too long across the street. Paranoia crept in, the same kind Jenkins suffered. I confided in my editor, Tom, over lunch at a deli in Chelsea Market. This goes beyond bots, I told him. They craft realities for individuals. He nodded, but his eyes showed doubt. Be careful, Elena. We can't publish without proof. That conversation marked a shift. I committed fully, no turning back. I quit sleeping well, my dreams filled with endless scrolls of lies. Maria noticed during our calls. You sound exhausted. Come visit the kids. I promised I would, but I lied to myself. I infiltrated deeper into the deep web forums where these ops discussed techniques. I posed as a freelancer seeking work, using a fake handle. One user bragged about single-target psyops, how they broke minds without trace. They mentioned Jenkins by codename, Old Guard. The forum linked to tools that scraped personal data and generated AI content on the fly. I downloaded samples, scripts that mimicked news sites, complete with fake comments from supporters. The morbo hit me. The thrill of peeking into forbidden knowledge, the sickness of knowing humans engineered this cruelty. Jenkins, alone in his house, clicked through hell designed just for him. His decisions affected thousands, budgets, policies in Queens neighborhoods like Jamaica or Astoria. If he lost the election due to this, the rival won unfairly. But exposing it risked everything. Tension built as I gathered evidence. I met a source, an ex-employee from the firm, at a bench in Central Park near the Bethesda fountain. Leaves crunched underfoot in the fall air. Tourists snapped photos. He whispered, they monitor reactions. If the target questions reality, they amp it up. He handed me a USB drive with logs showing Jenkins' breakdowns, searches for therapists, emails to family about everyone lying. My hands shook as I plugged it in later at home. The files detailed how the system predicted his moves, like chess. I felt dirty, complicit just by knowing. Work suffered. I missed deadlines, and Tom pulled me aside in our office, the bridge shaking above. Elena, focus or step back. But I couldn't. My fear grew, not of danger, but of the void this revealed. Anyone could fall into such a trap. What if they targeted me next, or Maria? The turning point came when I confronted the firm's head, Victor Hale, at a fundraiser in the financial district, amid skyscrapers and suits. I snuck in with a borrowed invite, the room filled with chatter and clinking glasses. I cornered him by the bar. I know about the Jenkins op, I said quietly.
His face paled, but he smiled. "Miss, you imagine things. Enjoy the party." That night, my apartment buzzed with notifications. Fake stories about me surfaced on fringe sites, claiming I fabricated facts. Colleagues questioned me. Maria called in tears. "Someone emailed me lies about you. What's happening?" The gaslighting turned on me. I realized the dilemma. Publish, and Jenkins denies it, calls me crazy. The weapon exposes itself, and copycats emerge.
Or stay silent and let it destroy him. I pushed toward resolution. I hacked the server one last time from a library in Harlem, surrounded by students. I planted a tracker to expose the operators. Alarms triggered, my screen flooded with warnings. They knew. I raced home through rainy streets, puddles splashing under my boots. In my apartment, I compiled the story. Screenshots, logs, everything. But as I typed, doubt hit. Who benefits? The rival or bigger players? The climax arrived when Jenkins announced his withdrawal at a press conference in City Hall, his voice trembling on live TV. "I can't trust anything anymore," he said. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted. I watched from my couch, heart pounding. My exposure caused this. Or did it? I hit publish on our site, but anonymously. The article went viral, sparking debates in bars across the city, from dive spots in the East Village to upscale places in Soho. Now, months later, investigations roll on. The firm denies everything, but scrutiny mounts. I change jobs, move to a quieter spot in Greenpoint. Maria visits more. We walk the waterfront, talking about real life, but I check my feeds obsessively, wonder if they tailor something for me. The terror lingers, not ghosts or monsters, but the quiet erosion of truth, one click at a time. If it happened to him, it could happen to you. That's the real horror.
I pulled the worn cardigan tight around me, even though the Seattle afternoon was barely cool. The constant, soft drizzle outside the Ballard Branch Library always made the air inside feel heavier, smelling of old paper and lukewarm coffee. I loved it. I loved the quiet, the predictable rhythm of stamping due dates, the total anonymity. My name is Eliza Vance now. I used to be Laura, 29 years old, a librarian, and officially a ghost. For 6 months, I built this new life. I rented a small apartment near the Ship Canal, paid the landlord in crisp 20s every month, and never once used a debit card. No streaming subscriptions, no loyalty points, no social media. When I needed something, groceries, a new pair of shoes, I went to the smallest, most out-of-the-way shops, and I only used cash. The goal was simple: starve the data beast. Mark, my ex, was a data scientist. He understood patterns better than people. He knew where I put my feet before I took the step. I didn't run from a man with a knife. I ran from a man with a server farm and a terrifying lack of human emotion. He didn't search for Laura on Facebook. He searched for the patterns Laura left behind. The real difficulty wasn't the paranoia. It was my body. I am celiac, so gluten-free food is a necessity, not a choice. And I take specific medication for my thyroid. I need both of those things to live a normal life. Starve the data beast, yes, but not myself. This is where the story truly starts. It began with the medication refill last Tuesday. I used a new pharmacy miles away from my apartment, near the tourist crush of Pike Place, figuring the constant noise and traffic offered more cover. I used the new name, Eliza Vance, and paid the $18.50 copay entirely in coins and small bills, just to avoid triggering a large banknote record. When I got home, I pulled the bottle out of the bag. The label read, Eliza Vance, correct medication, correct dosage. Everything was perfect. But tucked into the bottom of the paper bag was a small folded receipt from the grocery store. It was not mine. It listed organic kale,
artisanal goat cheese, and a bag of gluten-free corn chips. I stood there, staring at it. My first reaction was clerical error. The bag must belong to someone else. I tossed it in the trash. Then the logic kicked in. The clerk at the pharmacy hands out prescriptions. They do not bag groceries with them. And why would a grocery store receipt be in a sealed pharmacy bag? I pulled the receipt back out. The total was insignificant, just $12.35. The real problem was the chips. The specific brand of corn chip listed was my old personal favorite, the one I loved but had not bought in 6 months because the local Seattle store didn't carry it. Mark knew I considered them a safe splurge. This was the inciting incident. It was too specific, too small, and far too personal to be accidental. It was a breadcrumb left deliberately. I changed. I moved from quiet vigilance to panic mode. My hands shook as I ran down the list of everything Mark knew. He didn't just know my food allergies. He knew the dosage of my thyroid medication. He knew the combination. That combination, celiac diagnosis, plus this specific, low-demand thyroid drug, was the key. It created a unique data fingerprint. He wasn't searching for Laura Smith in the phone books. He was querying the deep web for pharmacy records, perhaps illegally accessing forums, looking for a matching pattern. Thyroid drug X plus celiac specialty food purchases geolocated near the Seattle region. That night I stayed up. I needed to delete the trail, but the trail was me. I could stop using my bank, but I could not stop taking my thyroid pills. I could not suddenly digest wheat. My body was the traitor. The next day, I called in sick to the library. I sat in my apartment with the blinds drawn, my laptop connected to a disposable VPN, looking into the pharmaceutical supply chain.
I discovered what Mark already knew. Every single prescription purchase, even if paid for in cash, hits a database. Inventory records, insurance codes, doctor IDs, it all lives on servers, many of which use older, less secure frameworks. That data is not on Google. It's on the deep web, waiting for a persistent key. A week later, I had completely stopped buying anything gluten-free, choosing instead to survive on rice and plain vegetables. I chose a third pharmacy, located across the Puget Sound, requiring a ferry ride. A long, pointless trip just for a bottle of pills. I stood at the counter. The pharmacist, a kind-faced woman named June, smiled. I paid cash. She handed me the bag. I walked outside and felt the panic rise like bile. I didn't need to open the bag. I knew. I could feel it. This time, I didn't see a foreign receipt. Instead, taped to the back of the prescription bottle was a small, crudely printed sticker. It showed a yellow rubber duck, the kind I kept on the dash of my old car. It was an inside joke Mark and I shared, a silly code for "I know where you are." He wasn't tracking my cash payments or my new name. He was tracking the inventory record. When I bought the medicine with my new name, Eliza Vance, at Pharmacy C, the system updated its digital inventory. The drug left the shelf. Mark wasn't looking for who bought it. He looked for when and where a prescription combining thyroid drug X and celiac purchase data point vanished from a pharmacy's inventory. He had access to the raw ledger, not the filtered customer names. He just needed the geographical zone to narrow the search, and the chips receipt was the warning that he had found the zone. The duck sticker meant he had found the exact time and place. My new life, Eliza Vance, was a lie built on sand. I went back to the library. The quiet was no longer comforting. It felt like a silent witness. The weight of the card catalog felt like concrete certainty. All data is cataloged somewhere. I realized the only way to stop the data pattern was to change the drug itself.
That meant telling a doctor, a real one, my actual history, something I swore I would never do. It meant opening up a new permanent digital trail with my new name, tying myself to a new doctor, a new insurance claim, a new history. It was a massive risk, but the inevitability of the rubber duck sticker was worse. I found a quiet private clinic in Redmond. The doctor was professional, her office sterile. I lied slightly about my history, claiming I moved to Seattle for a fresh start after a bad breakup. I got a new prescription for a slightly different thyroid medication. I hoped this change would break the pattern, generate a noise he couldn't filter. I filled the new prescription at a fourth pharmacy, this time near a busy Amazon campus, hoping the high-tech atmosphere meant better data security. I paid the cash, waited. No grocery receipt, no duck sticker. Relief, cold and sweet, washed over me. That relief lasted exactly 3 days. On the fourth morning, I woke up and there it was. An email in the burner account I used for job applications, the one he shouldn't have known about. The subject line was blank. The body contained only 2 lines of text. That new brand of levothyroxine makes some people dizzy, Eliza. Be careful on the ferry. He knew the drug I changed to. He knew my new name. He knew the specific side effect, and he knew my commute. He wasn't tracking the prescription. He had tracked the consult with the doctor. He had access to the most invasive data of all, my medical diagnosis, my needs, my symptoms. The deep web was not a place he searched, it was a place he lived. He was ahead of every move. I could run to California, Florida, or Illinois, but the moment I walked into a pharmacy and requested my necessity, that action resonated across the unsecured databases he policed. I dropped my phone. I didn't scream or cry.
I simply saw the end. The terror wasn't the threat of physical harm anymore. It was the terrifying understanding that I was never alone. Every biological necessity, every swallow of a pill, every bite of safe food sent a beacon directly to him. My own life was the antenna. I grabbed my wallet. I had to leave Seattle. I had to ditch the phone, the laptop, the name, everything. But first, I had one last stop. I needed more pills, enough to cover a month, maybe 2, while I figured out how to live without a name, without a home, without a digital body. I drove toward the biggest pharmacy downtown, planning to buy 2 months' worth, a huge inventory drop. I needed to create a massive data spike, a confusing pattern. Then I would vanish, not just from Mark, but from the grid entirely. I pulled into the parking garage. My phone chimed. I looked down. It was a text, not an email. I just saw you on the security camera feed for the third floor parking garage. You look thin. Maybe you should try eating those corn chips again. I look wildly around the cold concrete structure. Nobody. Just cars, fluorescent lights, and the hum of ventilation. Mark wasn't looking at pharmacy databases anymore. He was here. He was watching the cameras. The horror wasn't in the deep web. The horror was in the fact that he was so close, and the data pattern had led him out of the darkness and right into the physical world, tracking my every necessary survival-based move. I gripped the steering wheel, the panic gone, replaced by a cold, calculating resolve. I couldn't run anymore. Running only created new data points. I put the car in reverse, backed out of the space, and drove out of the garage. I did not go to the pharmacy. I drove west, toward the coast, toward the blank space on the map. I knew I had a limited amount of time before the dizziness started from the new drug, before the low blood sugar hit. I had to figure out how to live as an organism, not as a data pattern. The car felt heavy, like a coffin on wheels. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that he knew the current gas level in my tank.